The theme, pathways to development and amidst COVID-19 and beyond the 10th election is contemporary in every sense. It's a timely conversation, but let me also say the challenges, whether it's COVID-19 or any challenges for the matter, is as old as 1975. We have been living with challenges since 1975, and let me appreciate the presence of the Australian High Commission, His Excellency John Phillips. Excuse my ignorance in my acknowledgement, but when Australia decided to allow us to be politically independent in 1975, there were many gifts you parted us with. Amongst them was PNG. Before 75, we were still one part of the Commonwealth of States or Commonwealth of Australia. And PNG, if I am not wrong, I was advised by Mr. Igara, was the first university, so to speak, that was outside of Australian territory proper. And so there's a deep bond between Papua New Guinea and Australia. There's a deeper bond between Papua New Guineans and Australia, and Papua New Guinea institutions and Australian institutions, and none can be more exemplified or personified than the relationship that UPNG continues to have with Australian National University and ANU, and let me appreciate the Australian government for continuous support to this school. I also speak as a former, as an alumni, brother. I sincerely appreciate the intervention in this school. Sitting here is evidence of a modern ambient auditorium and a lecture hall. And for me as an alumni, coming back here, brings me a lot of memory. This is a school that molded and shaped rural Papua New Guinean teenager into a modern PNG contemporary man. And so if there is any one space to invest in to ensure that the country is better safe and assisted going forward to our friends in Australia, your continued presence in UPNG, Unitec, and our tertiary institutions sought and requested. And so thank you for your continued support. But Australia and Papua New Guinea parted way in 1975. Challenges still remain big. And COVID-19 was a case in point where our weaknesses and vulnerabilities were totally exposed. For instance, in the health sector, when COVID-19 descended, we looked in and we realized, apart from the dilapidated health infrastructure and the weak health delivery systems we had, we only had 44 ICU beds nationwide that had oxygen ventilations attached to the bed. Why I make reference to this one, it's an indication that in a nation of possibly 8 billion people, and we will do census next year to affirm what's the number of people we have in our country, 44 ICU beds since 1975 up to 2020 that had oxygen ventilations attached to them. And in a rate of possible COVID-19 spread that was presented to us, we looked down the barrel and possibly saw disaster. Thank God, for the hand of God, and not to downplay some of the interventions we made as a government, we tried our absolute best to arrest the COVID-19 travesty that would have befallen us. But COVID-19 is not the main conversation here. I'm just trying to use COVID-19 as a case in point to indicate to us challenges are very real in our country. COVID-19 did expose them, and every other challenge that we are faced with. Let me give you a background of the economy, because many would ask, well, what has been happening to governments of past and governments of present? Let me give you some background so we contextualize properly how we have traveled as a nation since 1975. Our economy back in 1975 was an economy of, in terms of GDP, if you use GDP as a measurement, it was under 2 billion kina from the advice that I've received here in PNG economic database statistics. So you have a population of around 3 million people and a GDP or economy size that is under 2 billion kina. Please, academians here, you make a note in this one and go and confirm. What was the size of economy in 1975? Because that puts into context the debate of how we've come and what is the affordability of us to, as government, to serve our country with the essential services and everything else that need to be served. And so from 1975, in an economy that was under 2 billion kina, we've traveled in a positive projection. For instance, in 1985, from my report or my statistics that I'm showing here, we were an economy of 9.4 billion kina, 10 years after independence. In 1995, 20 years after independence, we were an economy of 22.8 billion kina. In 2005, we were an economy of 22.8 billion kina. In 2015, we were an economy of 60.1 billion kina. And I'm happy our good friend from National Research Institute. And those of you who are modelers of our economy and our diplomat modelers are in the house. In that economic camp, in different time segments of our nation's history, you extrapolate what is the revenue space of government, what is the revenue space of our people who contribute tax to the government, and what is the revenue space of our industries against the development needs of our country. My hypothesis has always been that our country's need has been so big and our revenue envelope has been so small. Thank goodness, by God's grace and our people's resilience, we still remain a very robust democracy. And in the midst of these challenges, COVID-19 or any other challenges and every other challenges that we have been exposed to, we still remain a united sovereign nation. In the midst of so many diversities we have, we still remain a very robust democracy, especially the sanctity of our judiciary as we preserved for the last 47 years. And yes, whilst we may have grown the economy from what was a 2 billion kina economy in 1975 to today, and let me just bring home what we've done in the last 3 years in the midst of COVID-19. When I took office in 2019, little did I saw COVID-19 emerging. We only saw the very weak economic fundamentals that we've inherited in 2019. And so we were going into budget repair, economic repair focus, yet COVID-19 hit us big. It wasn't only us, it was the global economy also, but we readjusted. The good news, in the midst of COVID-19, we were able to look in, look deep, and also look out to friendly support in the neighborhood. When I took over in 2019, our economy was a 79.6 billion kina economy. Today, you just have to look into IMF report, World Bank report, Central Bank report, ADB report, and of course our own treasury. Last year, for instance, we forecasted our GDP to be 101 billion kina GDP size. Today, from estimations from these credible global economic benchmarkers, our economy is forecasted to peak at 109 billion kina, if not the 110 billion kina economy. last 3 years, using government budget and especially responsible low-cost concessional borrowing as a tool, we've been able to aggregate the government spending in 3 years, close to 57 billion kina of expenditures through sub-national government programs and through government programs, including retirement of areas, have kept our economy functional, liquidated, and operational. And so we've been able to move our pendulum from what was a 79 billion in space to now a 110 billion in economy. Why am I engaged in the economic conversation whilst you want to talk about COVID-19? Well, talking about COVID-19 and talking about every other source of need is totally redundant when discussion of economy is not brought into the picture. Because at the end of the day, money is king. You pay your bills. Expenditures must be financed. In our country, we have many challenges. For instance, when I look at our records since 1975, our employment has always been our formal employment, and those who are testing the informal economy has always been, if I am not wrong, only 15% of our people have been engaged somewhat in the formal or informal economy. So for those of you who are in the room, like me, earning some salary from the public purse, or fortunate to be earning from the private sector, you belong to only 15% of Papua New Guineans who are privileged. Our population continues to be growing about 3%, when our economy on average has struggled to match the annual population growth. Over 80% of our country still remains unlinked to economic and social infrastructures. 80% unlinked. In 1975, it remained almost 80% plus unlinked. Today, as we speak, we have not built new highways. We have not built new jetties. We have not built new schools. We have not built new hospitals. We have not built many new transformational infrastructures to anchor what is now tripled or quadrupled population from what it was at 1975. This is the statistics we are faced with, ladies and gentlemen. Over 70% of our children, for instance, and our youth and adults remain half-educated, or if not educated at all. There is no spread of presence, there is no spread and presence of the law and justice sector in most parts of our country. Our exposures to global inflation and the global ups and downs and spikes and pitfalls of global economy remains, because as a small country dependent on imports, our exposure to even imported inflation remains very much real up to today. And of course, corruption, nepotism, complacency, inefficiency, and weakness of every kind exists in the entire public service structure in our country. These were the challenges that we have faced in the last 47 years. And we have come from this low and weak starting point. But take heart, not all is gloomy, and not all is bad. I will start drinking this water here. I was drinking and it is half empty or half full. Some will look in this and say it is half empty. I looked into this bottle and it said it's half filled. I just want to pause for a moment and encourage every one of us in this auditorium. Be optimistic. Life is half filled. Life is filled, and life is not empty for you and me sitting here today and for our country. Be optimistic. We live in a nation where our resources remain abundant. Some say our nation is a nation that is 12th intense in terms of resource intensity. Look across planet. Our nation is 12th in terms of resource intensity. If we are 12th in terms of resource intensity, then harnessing the resources we have in our country, focusing on growing economy, ensuring that government is spending well in areas that government needs to invest in are some three key aspects of which we can harness from the challenges we are faced with in COVID-19, the benefits that are prevalent and available in our country, and we can together grow our country. As we model as government, we've modeled that our country needs to reach a threshold of a 200 billion Kina economy at the very earliest. As we reach a 200 billion Kina economy at the very earliest, it will give us the economic ambience to ensure that we have equal opportunity for all, we have the resources and the tax-paying ability from within, and for our country to grow. And our government is focused in this direction in the first instance. How can we unbundle our resources and our potentials to reach the 200 billion Kina economy at the very earliest? That is why some of the policies that I went to election with, and thankfully the people of this country have returned my Pangu party to government, we are taking our policy to the forefront. Rural-centered policies. For instance, our support and intervention in the agricultural sector will go big. Some laughed at a coffee minister. I tell you, coffee is now an increasing drink every day. Most of you here, by the end of today, if you drink coffee, you will have drunk 3 cups. If on average 1 billion people on planet Earth drink a cup of coffee a day and are spending $1 a day, it tells me that $1 billion minimum is spent on coffee right across planet Earth. I just returned from overseas engagement. I made contact with leaders of 35% of the world's GDP. They drink coffee. When I speak with the Australian Prime Minister, when I spoke with Japanese Prime Minister, when I spoke with UK Prime Minister, and of course the King is a symbolic head. I did say hello on all your behalf to him. He spoke on the conservation of a forest. That's something close to his heart, close to my heart also. But when I speak to the leaders of this free world, they control close to 40–50% of the global economy. When you throw in our relationship with China into the fray, it's 1 billion plus people who eat food, consume energy, have rest and recreation. When I throw in the 260 million people on the other side in Indonesia, which by the way in 10 years time will be the 4th biggest global economy. And when I throw in the rest of the Asian economy, which we are an associated member of, the marketplace is close to us. Pessimist, half-field thinking mindset and worldview will not progress this country. I need positive, optimistic Papua New Guineans to rise to the occasion. Together, if we grow our economy to a 200 billion Kina economy space, then we can be able to have enough, at least enough to start off with, to tick off our schools, tick off our health, tick off our roads, tick off everything else. Today, the road to Ulubidi House is a congested road. The demands are so big, the availability of money to finance our needs in our country is so small. That is why government goes to deficit financing to ensure we at least keep our heads above waters. I just want to encourage this conversation here. Be positive. Think positive. In our focus for the next few years, we want to make interventions in education, in health, in enabling infrastructures, in the economic sector, so that our country can grow together and we eat only one place, one person, one region behind. Our nation is facing 50 years of independence in 2025. What is the golden occasion of 2025 for all of us? I just want to appeal to the inner sanctum of each and every one of us sitting here, the educated Papua New Guineans. Don't be naysayers and doomsayers and pessimists in your worldview. The opportunity that is abound. Where else on planet Earth you will have citizens owning land, for instance? Where else on planet Earth you have citizens owning land? Government is now in the business of matching land and people who own land, and that's 97% of our land, with economic opportunities. Next year there will be substantial allocation in budget for those in the Civic Plains, in the Ramu Plains, in the Makam Plains, in the plains of Central, who don't have trouble fight to get engaged in the space of unbundling the potentials you have. Our Connect PNG program is running not into semi-social sector, but more importantly, target at areas on the side of these roads and the highways to ensure in the next 10 years we unbundle the potentials of agriculture, tourism, fisheries. Our special economic zone focuses will remain. Give special tax incentives to enclaves in our country. That is a model that Shenzhen operated out of. Shenzhen 10 years ago was a fishing village on the sidewalk of Shenzhen River. Today Shenzhen has more money than almost 50% of countries on planet Earth. Special economic concepts, not the model of Shenzhen, but the model of PNG. We will tailor to ensure we give incentives to industries who want to come in and partner us. We will start off with a special economic zone proper, close to the motor pay all the way to Papa Lele, and bundling cheaper electricity in the first instance, developing enabling infrastructures. These are focuses of our country as we go forward. And whilst we talk on the economic space, focus on downstream, let me, and most of you know already in my conversation, let me also touch on our focus on ICAC. ICAC will be established next year. Our focus and our amendment to the Proceeds of Crime Act that we delivered last year is not a social and law and justice sector approach only. If government and government revenue is used efficiently, ICAC and the Whistleblowers Act and the Proceeds of Crime Act amendment that inserts into that a provision for undisclosed wealth. If a public servant and a politician is living beyond the income level, then we have law now to expose and for them to declare their source of income. Our effort also on the side of fighting corruption is complementary to growing the economy, because we want a basket that contains our national wealth to be a basket that is safe from abuse and theft and corruption. So we're doing everything possible, ladies and gentlemen. I do not need to go on, you know my conversations. The country gave mandate to the Congo Party to lead once again. Our policy and my statement to the country has been set. We are walking this course, but we have space for good policy inputs. If you feel there's spaces where we could improve on, these conversations here must find a resting place in the policy think tanks of government and not the sidewalk think tanks, if I could have this one. So give your contributions to us, and I've engaged formally with the National Research Institute and our universities in our country. Part of this will be used to assist the way we do better. Find me in your conversations, how do we grow the economy to a 200 million economy? I focus on downstream sector. For instance, in the forestry space, there will be no more roundup export by 2025, and I will stick to this simply because that is the easiest space for me to migrate into downstream at the very youngest. Downstream processing of all our resources in our country will be conversation contemporary now and for the next 10, 15, 20 years. I want this to be modeled by you, modelers here. How can downstream processing of our resources add value to our economy? Because an improved and increased economy will allow us to have the muscles to withstand important inflation, withstand crises like COVID-19 and other crises going forward into the future. And I just want to close by appealing to all of you. Your presentations will be noted and registered by us in government planning circles, and may not just collect readings for your users here. Please, we will interface with you, and if your advices can assist government in a big way, we look forward to taking those advices. For companies in the house, remember this conversation. This is a half-filled bottle and not half-empty bottle. See Papua New Guinea from an optimistic perspective. We are trying our best, but government alone is not sufficient. The citizens need to rise up to the occasion. I point to you one place where citizens can get engaged in the rule of law. If citizens give respect to the rule of law in our country, government and investors and everyone else can do the rest. Rule of law is not magic science. Just respect the rule of law. And the other day I was going very hard in Parliament. I said, what are you going to do with prostitution in our cities? I'm telling fathers, take your daughters back home. If you don't have land, next year when the census comes around, you indicate that you don't have land. And government will try to find land for you. But all of us should have a traditional land somewhere back home. That place, you can go to your member right away, go to your governor right away. I have land here. Government talks about agriculture. Government talks about SME. Government's putting freight support. Government putting price support. How can I, as a citizen, get engaged in a productive economic space? This is what you must do. Hold your members of parliament accountable. We're giving money straight to the districts and to the province now. You come from a village somewhere. You come from a tribe somewhere. You have a land somewhere. I see my sister from Manu sitting here serving in Papua New Guinea for a long, long time. Thank you for coming here, Miss Winnie here. Manus, for instance, in the Loringa Bay. Thank you. Loringa Bay, we put in a artificial fees buying facility. So no Manus in the Loringa Bay should be saying, I don't have money. Go out and feast. God has already given you heaps of fish in the ocean out there. Selling is government's business, we'll buy it from you. Any amount, we'll buy it from you. Just go and fish. We're looking for opportunities for Papuans to make money from the land, from the sea. And of course, airspace, we are in conversation to make money from airspace. Don't think you don't make money from the air. Resources and opportunities are abundant. See it from the perspective of an optimistic person. And as you present here, especially Papua New Guineans, present your presentations with a recommendation. As I want to conclude. Present your presentations with a recommendation. Don't leave it half empty. Bring it to the table half filled. Present your presentations, especially if you're Papua New Guinea. Present it with a solution. I leave with you the story of John F. Kennedy. September 12, 1962. He said America will go to the moon in this decade. And the rationale was simple. He qualified himself. It is not because it is easy, but the task is hard. But because it is hard, America will break the barrier of science, research, innovation, technology, and knowledge-based economy. We will win the race in this decade and will be the #1 country. He was an optimistic person. He was dead and gone, but within the decade, his harshest criticism, who criticized him, was President Nixon, who lived to see Neil Armstrong, his human feet on the moon on July 20, 1969 or 68, whatever it is. At least you are aware of this story. Optimistic for your country. We have the resources. Government is doing the absolute best to unbundle them and put in policy that will ensure we move to a 200 billion in economy in this decade, so that we fulfill our Vision 2050 aspirations.